Right. Good afternoon. As you know, Secretary General is in Washington, D.C. today. He had meetings with, was scheduled to have meetings, which I think took place with John Bolton and national security staff at the White House this morning. And this afternoon at 2 p.m., he will be meeting the Secretary of State, Michael Pompeo. And we expect camera spray at the top of that meeting in Washington. We expect Secretary General back here tomorrow. On Friday morning, I wanted to let you know that the Secretary General will lay a wreath in tribute of the UN staff who died in the Ethiopian Airlines crash last Sunday. That event will take place at 11 a.m. in the visitors' lobby, and you're, of course, all welcome to join. I have a senior personnel appointment for today. Parfait Onanga Nyanga of Gabon and his special is being named as the Secretary General's special envoy for the Horn of Africa. Mr. Onanga Nyanga brings with him extensive experience in the United Nations, having served most recently as the Secretary General's Special Representative and head of the peacekeeping mission in the Central African Republic. He also led, he was also the coordinator of the UN at UN headquarters of the response to the Boko Haram crisis and head of the UN office in Burundi. Lots more information in our office. Yesterday evening, the Secretary General met with the Foreign Minister of Colombia, Carlos Holmes Trujillo Garcia. They discussed the situation of the Special Jurisdiction for Peace. The Secretary General took note of the explanations provided by the Foreign Minister with respect to the objections by President Duque of its statutory law. The Secretary General stressed the importance of the Special Jurisdiction for Peace, and he reiterated the concerns expressed previously by the UN with respect to the uncertainty surrounding the adoption of the statutory law and his hope for swift actions to ensure that this legal foundation is put into place as soon as possible, ensuring the rights of victims and legal security for all concerned parties. And you just heard, as you know, the Security Council just finished its close consultations on Yemen. The Special Envoy for Yemen, Martin Griffiths, briefed Council members on the implementation of the Stockholm Agreement. He informed Council members that we're still working with the parties to make the redeployment in Hodeidah a reality. And today, the Undersecretary General for Political and Peacebuilding Affairs, Rosemary DiCarlo, and the African Union Commissioner for Peace and Security, Ambassador Ismail Shergi, concluded a joint two-day visit to Libya. The joint UN-AU delegation held meetings in Tripoli with the president of the Presidency Council, Fayez Sarraj, as well as Khaled al-Mishri, the president of the High Council of State, and other members of the Government of National Accord. They were also briefed on security arrangements in Tripoli and met with a women's group. Today, Ms. DiCarlo and Ambassador Shergi, accompanied by the Secretary General's Special Representative in Libya, Qassam Salameh, traveled to Benghazi, where they met with the commander of the Libyan National Army, Field Marshal Khalifa Haftar. The joint visit was in support of the UN-led efforts aimed at reaching political settlement, leading to unification of the country's institution and the holding of national elections and the enhancement of security, stability, and living conditions for the Libyan people. And the third Brussels conference on supporting the future of Syria and the region is going ahead, and the Office of Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says that humanitarian needs inside Syria remain at a record level, with 11.7 million people in need of some form of humanitarian aid protection. The UN Relief Coordinator, Mark Lowcock, warns that without an immediate and substantial injection of funds, life-saving provisions of food, water, healthcare, shelter, and protection services will likely be interrupted. The UN is urgently seeking increased funding to help people in need through a $3.3 billion appeal for the response inside Syria and for $5.5 billion refugee and resilience plan for the neighboring countries. The High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, said reduced assistance due to funding cuts means that refugees are forced to make agonizing choices every day, such as taking children out of school to work or reducing meals. He said it's essential that the international community stays the course in supporting the millions of Syrian refugees who live in neighboring countries and still require protection and assistance. Despite generous funding by donors in 2018, only 65% of the $3.4 billion required for the Inside Syria plan was actually received. And at the UN Environmental Assembly in Nairobi, the UN Environment Program released today a report which warns that damage to the planet is increasingly threatening people's health. The agency's Global Environment Outlook says that unless we drastically scale up environmental protection, cities in Asia, the Middle East, and Africa could see millions of premature deaths by mid-century. The report also warns that pollutants in our freshwater systems will be a major cause of death by 2050 and will impact male and female fertility as well as children's neurodevelopment. UNEP said that we are at a crossroads and called on countries to implement innovative policies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and waste. You can find the full report online. And our colleagues at UNAIDS are expressing concern that the new HIV infections are not declining among people who inject drugs, despite decline in new infections globally. A new UNAIDS report also shows that 99% of people who inject drugs live in countries that do not provide adequate harm reduction services, which include needle and syringe programs, drug dependence treatment, and HIV treatment and testing. In a press release today, Michel Sidibé, the UNAIDS executive director, said that ensuring access to health and social services with dignity and without discrimination or criminalization can save lives and drastically reduce HIV infections. And you may have seen that yesterday evening we issued a statement by the Special Advisor on the Prevention of Genocide, Adama Dieng, on the draft reforms to the laws of national reconciliation in Guatemala. Mr. Dieng urged members of the Guatemalan Congress to reject the draft legislations on this law, saying that approval would grant amnesty with retroactive effect to all those convicted or awaiting trial for international crimes committed during the country's civil war. These crimes include genocide and crimes against humanity. His statement is online. A couple more things to flag, a lot of stuff today. In Iraq, the UN Development Program said it is rehabilitating 15,000 houses in West Mosul as part of an effort to rebuild more than 30,000 homes, the largest such project in the country. Some 90,000 people will be able to return home to 29 neighborhoods that were hardest hit during the effort to liberate the city from Daesh. UNDP is involved in some 800 other projects in Mosul to rehabilitate the city. And our humanitarian colleagues report that flooding in Malawi and Mozambique has affected nearly 843,000 people and caused at least 60 deaths, according to preliminary reports from respective governments. Both Malawian and Mozambican governments are leading humanitarian responses. The Malawian government has appealed for support with emergency relief items, including tents, foods, medicines, and helicopters for rescue operation and delivery of assistance. OCHA says humanitarian response, search and rescue efforts, rapid needs assessments are underway in Malawi. And in Mozambique, the flooding has affected more than 103,000 people, and the government there and humanitarian partners are providing assistance to affected people. And our colleagues at UNICEF report that 260,000 children in the Kasai region of the Democratic Republic of the Congo are suffering from severe and acute malnutrition in need of life-saving treatment. Violence and insecurity between 2016 and 2018 caused large-scale displacements in Kasai. Although pockets of insecurity remain, thousands of families who had fled the region have now returned to their communities. After you're done with me and after you're done with Monica, there'll be a briefing here sponsored by the Permanent Mission of Ukraine as part of the CSW meetings with Natalia Mokriak and Olga Opritsko of the Azov Sailors Women's Platform. Halas. Carol, sorry.
Stephane, can you give us more details on Yemen? What meetings are planned with General Lawless-Gard or Martin Griffiths to try to get the Hodeidah agreement implemented? And is there a sense at the UN that this agreement is unraveling?
No, I would not use the term unraveling. I think patience and determination are really the name of the game. I think no one expected this to be easy. This was the first, and this is the first agreement reached by the parties since the start of the conflict. Mr. Griffiths, General Lawless-Gard are determined to help the parties reach an agreement to implement what was actually agreed to implement it on the ground, and we continue our efforts and speak to whoever we need to speak to do that. And I cannot. Yeah. We usually get updates when they meet. So as soon as we have confirmation of a meeting, we will share that with you. Yep.
Thanks, Stephane. We have, oh, go ahead, Evelyn can go. You can go.
All
Me?
right, Evelyn, go ahead.
Okay. Hello, Steph.
Everybody's so polite here.
Yeah, right. Everything going. On Iraq, when you mentioned, whatever you mentioned,
I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah, no, the new housing and so forth. Has there been any accountability on the Yazidis? They had. They've talked about it. Yeah.
Right. There is a commission that was impaneled to do its work and to collect evidence, and they're going about their
doing
work.
it.
But
You think they are?
their crimes have clearly been committed, and accountability will have to be had.
And anything new on UNAIDS, on the sexual harassment controversy?
No, I have nothing to share. Yep. And then
Thanks, Stephane. Venezuela has been without electricity since Thursday, and we know it's been reported at least 15 deaths. They're using the sewer water to try to get some water for their homes. At this point, what is the Secretary General idea of what it could happen and how the organizations and the special group that was assigned and is based with the OEM and, the organizations that we have in the area for Venezuela will be able to assist in some matter? At this point, it seems to be more a humanitarian crisis within the country. And then the second part is, what is the sense of the office of the good offices of what it could happen in terms of any dialogue, especially now that the DA of Venezuela has said that the responsibility of this blackout is part of Guaido's new investigation against him. So is it worried that they're trying to now use the blackout to try to go against members of the opposition?
Sure. Let me try to address the various issues you've brought up. We, of course, the Secretary General is very concerned about the humanitarian impact that the blackout has had. We're following it. We're following closely. We're also concerned about the reports of incidents of looting and violence that we've seen. We have offered to step up our support to address the emergency situation, and as a matter of course, our team on the ground is in touch with government officials. On the broader political point, I have nothing new to announce on the good offices. The Secretary General's office still stands. I think but our call to all actors, both domestic and non-domestic, both national and non-national actors, is to do whatever they can to help lower the tensions in Venezuela. Madame, go ahead. Everybody's yielding to everybody. Yeah.
Clarification on when you said you've offered your support. Is this an offer in light of the blackout, and what?
Yeah, I think it's an offer in light of the current humanitarian situation in Colombia. No. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Stephane. On the Global Environment Report, has there been a reaction from the Secretary General to that report? And we have seen many similar reports before. Is this one any scarier than the previous ones? And do you expect it to change the way the UN is addressing climate change, especially considering we are not on track to meet SDG climate goals?
I think I think we have, the report just adds to the scientific knowledge that we have already, right? And it's a very important report. I think it's also very important to put the impact of climate change in the context of health and the impact that it has on health, which is very real and which we see today, whether it's on issues of air quality or long-term health impact. We hope that this report, along with others, will give national actors, political actors, business community, even more impetus to join the fight against the impact of climate change. Thank you. Monica, it's time for you.
Last question, please.
We'll do a last question. Yeah.
It's about freedom of speech in Venezuela. And
Sorry, say
following
again?
up the freedom of speech in
Yeah.
Venezuela, and following this, the blackout in Venezuela, and now is a word of who to blame on this matter. So, a journalist, Luis Carlos Diaz, he was arrested, and he was with indictment of he's been conducting or being part of this blackout in Venezuela. So, there's anything from the UN about?
I mean, the report that I saw is that he was then released, which is good news. But it is very important that journalists be allowed to do their work, free of harassment, free of arrest, so that they're able to exercise their rights to report. Thank you.